Raise up your hands, put a smile on your face. I'm talking to everyone in the human race. We're proud and strong, stand up tall. All get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all let's all let's all get together, bring peace to the world. There's a train of love beginning right here. Jump onto it and have no fear. It's yours, it's mine. We got the call. Let's all get together, bring. Oh, let's all. Let's all. Oh, let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Shelter the homeless, open your door. Feed the hungry, give to the poor. Offer your heart, don't think small. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all. Let's all. Oh, let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together. Oh, let's all. Oh, let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all. Oh, let's all get together, bring peace to the world.
Thank you, Lawrence. Got me all jacked up. I think I'll go off the script that Marty gave me. He's not here. He'll never know. Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Unity of Charlotte. We're absolutely delighted to have you. My name is Bill Barron, and we also want to welcome those joining us on Access 21 and YouTube. We are a spiritual community that promotes a way of life that's based on universal spiritual principles and practices, and we believe that spiritual community, and I think you can see it here, enhances our experience of life, making it richer, deeper, and more expanded. Thus our mission, nurturing a deep, mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. If you are joining us for the first time today, we want to welcome you. Please sit back, relax, fasten your seatbelts, and enjoy yourself as our guest. If you did not already receive one, we have welcoming packets in the lobby at the front, near the front door, which you're welcome to take one. If you are in need of spiritual support, you can place a prayer request in our prayer box, and also you can do online. You can actually go online. That's I had to get that. No, you can now do prayer requests online, which we've actually had quite a few online, so that's wonderful. On Saturday, June the 23rd, which is not that far away, the inimitable Rev Mo will be back to do a workshop called Q Effect. There's some materials out in the lobby on the wall there in the trays that hold them, and it focuses on identifying and eliminating your limiting beliefs. And you can register by going online or on our Facebook page as well. I want to go ahead and introduce Reverend Sally Robbins, who is our guest speaker and celebrant here today. Reverend Sally has been a minister for 20 years and is ordained by the Centers for Spiritual Living. She came into the ministry over 25 years in the she came to the ministry after over 25 years in the corporate and entrepreneurial world. Her background includes extensive experience in sales and marketing, television and radio, advertising and production, and event production. Reverend Sally is also a contributing editor to Science of Mind magazine, and she wrote the daily guides for the April issue. She has also served at the national level at the Centers for Spiritual Living in a variety of roles, including 3 times being named co-chair of the CSL Event Committee. Reverend Sally just recently, very recently, a matter of weeks ago, moved to Charlotte and is happily, for the most part, settling into her new home once we got that move taken care of. The title of Reverend Sally's, and she also laughs at my jokes too, I love her. The title of Reverend Sally's talk today is The Law of Divine Purpose. So now please relax and allow the music to take you on the inward journey, and our prayer will be led by Reverend Sally Robbins.
You did. Let's take an inward journey now. I invite you, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes. Just relax in your seat. Let every part of your body just let go, relax. Whatever hustle and bustle it took to get here this morning, just set that aside. And let's practice being here in this holy instant, the only moment there is, the now. For in this moment, I celebrate the oneness that I know exists in this room. Where there are multiple bodies here, there really only is the one. And so we celebrate that today. That there is no difference between me and the person sitting next to me. There is nothing that is stopping that one heart, one power, one mind. And so we lift our consciousness to an elevated point that knows that there is only the unlimited power of God, of good. For we know that when the tide rises, all boats rise. So every single person in here, in the fellowship of this unity of Charlotte, is recognizing this consciousness now. We are all rising together. I celebrate that oneness. I celebrate the oneness in my brother or sister sitting next to me. I celebrate the oneness that I feel in the smiles that we exchange with each other. I celebrate the oneness behind the eyes of the beloved, my brothers and sisters in this room. And for those of us joining through the miracle of technology, I know that oneness extends to you as well, that we are all one. We are all one. And together we say, and so it is. And so now we come to our time when we're going to have a brief meditation. So I invite you again, if you're comfortable, just close your eyes. I'm going to read some affirmations from Edwene Gaines's book, The 4 Laws of Spiritual Prosperity. And this is what Edwene has to say. My Father, Mother God loves me. I am God's beloved child. I am forgiven for all mistakes of the past. It is God's good pleasure to give me the kingdom. Because I serve God, I have a right to the abundant life. I have a right to riches. Every one of God's children has a right to abundance. Rich, divine ideas flow through me to bless and prosper all humankind. I want God's good for everyone. My abundance benefits everyone, and everyone's abundance benefits me. I set specific goals and let God lead me to accomplish them. I'm thankful for all my seen and unseen blessings. My faith in God is firmly established. I live by faith. My thoughts, words, and deeds are divinely creative. Because I am faithful in small matters, God gives me master over great matters. I am a world server. I serve God in the world. I walk through the world, transforming it as I go. Let's take those affirmations in and just meditate in the silence for just a few brief moments. I am a world server. I serve God in the world. I walk through the world, transforming it as I go. I know these truths. I live these truths. I am these truths. And so it is. Amen. So again, welcome. We're so glad you're here with us on this Memorial Day weekend. Are there any veterans here in the congregation today? Would you please stand? Let us celebrate you. Please stand if you've given service to our country. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. It's because of you that we can celebrate in our own way each Sunday morning, isn't it? Thank you. So we always have a monthly affirmation, and so you'll see it on the screen here behind you. Let's stand. We're going to say this affirmation together, and then we'll go right into our congregational song after that. And let's say this, since it's the last Sunday we get to say this. Let's say it loud and say it proud. So, together, today I choose to live abundantly. I recognize God as my true source. I participate fully in the flow of life. I joyously give and graciously receive. Today I choose to live abundantly.
Where you lead me,
And so now we have a very special guest. Our musical guest today is someone that you'll probably recognize. He's been around here for a long time. Would you please help me welcome Tom Havner?
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you all. This is great. Wow, God in drag. God in drag. The words of this song, "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother," describe a person who uncompromisingly gives aid and support, either physical or emotional or financially, to someone who's walking through a dark path, someone who needs some help. And the words of the song were written in 1884, but the actual song was composed. The written word, the music, I got it, was written in 1969. But the original words came from a book written by a Scottish minister. The book was called The Parables of Jesus, and it describes a little girl who is carrying a big baby boy. And someone sees her struggling with carrying this big baby boy and says, "Aren't you tired?" And she says, "No, he's not heavy. He's my brother." Okay. The road is long, with many a winding turn, that leads us to who knows where, who knows when. But I'm strong enough to carry him. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. So on we go. His welfare is my concern. No burden is he to bear. We'll get there, for I know he would not encumber me. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. If I'm laden at all, I'm laden with sadness that everyone's heart isn't filled with the gladness of love for one another. It's a long, long road from which there is no return. While we're on the way to there, why not share? And the Lord doesn't weigh me down at all. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. He's my brother. He's my brother.
Thank you, Tom. So we are exploring the four spiritual laws of prosperity, a wonderful little book by Edwene Gaines. And Reverend Marty has taken us through the previous 3 laws in the last 3 weeks. And so I have the law of divine purpose. Now this, I got to tell you, when he told me this was the one I was talking on, I was like, yes, I could talk about this for days. I love this topic. And so I want to set the intention right off the bat. Would you turn to your neighbor and say to them, I'm living my divine purpose. All right, now turn back to them. I'm counting on you to live your divine purpose too. Because the point is, when we're all living on purpose, it benefits the world. Is that not right? It benefits the world. And the world is waiting for us to wake up and live our divine purpose. It wants us to be on purpose. Because the world so desperately needs, would you agree? Those of us who live on purpose. Can I get an amen? Amen. Yes. We are here to play big. It's no more time for playing small. No more time for, well, I guess I can. No! You got to step up. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Are you ready for it? Yes. Fasten those seatbelts. We're going for it. Because I'm going to tell you first about a community. A community. Let me see if I can get this to work. And it's working. Maybe. There we go. Okay. This is the thriving metropolis of Enterprise, Alabama. This is Main Street. And there indeed is a fountain with a statue in the middle of it. This is in the middle of Main Street. That's how big this town is. This is what it used to look like years ago. I visited it probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they've actually taken down that statue because people kept stealing it. So they had to keep replacing it. But what she is holding there is this. It's a bug. And that bug is a boll weevil. Do you know what a boll weevil is? In the South, we know what boll weevils are. When I have talked about this in other places, they're like, what? What's a boll weevil? Well, in the early 1900s, the boll weevil came in from South America on the ships that came into the port in New Orleans. And it started spreading across the South. And the boll weevil specifically attacks the cotton crops. And so farmers at that time were heavily invested in cotton crops. That was the major crop of the South. And so the farmers in Enterprise, Alabama, just like most of the rest of the South, were decimated by this little tiny bug, the boll weevil. It was destroying their crops. It was destroying their livelihood. They didn't know what to do. And so the town leaders got together and they said, we've got to do something because obviously we're not going to survive with the boll weevil destroying our crops. So they came up with an idea. They said, you know what? If the boll weevil is going after cotton, what doesn't the boll weevil go after? How about peanuts? Let's try peanuts. Boll weevils don't seem to care for peanuts. So they switched their crops to peanuts, which it turns out they actually got more yield per acre growing peanuts. And all of a sudden, they were back in prosperous times. all because they thought beyond the tragedy that was unfolding in front of them. They said, there's a bigger idea going on here. God's in charge, and God is always giving us a bigger and better idea. And so in 1919, they erected this monument. It's the boll weevil monument. And it says, in profound appreciation of the boll weevil and what it has done as the herald of prosperity, this monument was erected by the citizens of Enterprise, Coffee County, Alabama. Isn't that great? I think it might be the only monument erected to a bug in the entire country, maybe the entire world. Now, herald is another word for a sign, a messenger. So these leaders, this town, recognized that the boll weevil was a messenger of greater good. Their purpose was beyond what was in front of them. Their divine purpose was to think larger, think beyond the appearances that were there in front of them. And when they did, something bigger happened. And so Enterprise is a monument to the testament of people that thought there's a bigger purpose going on here. There's something larger that I can participate in if I choose to think aright. Now, there were probably other people that were like, oh man, we're doomed. What are we going to do with this boll weevil? And yet the overarching consciousness there was, there's something bigger that is pulling us to a greater expression here. So living on divine purpose to them meant seeing beyond the appearance. Seeing beyond the appearance. So thus was born the very famous saying, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Had to say that 3 times to get it. I just had to throw that in. You see, when we are absolutely on divine purpose, we've got to let go of that fear, right? We've got to let go of the ideas that are keeping us small, keeping us in a box, maybe that we've lived in most of our lives. Because Spirit, God, whatever word we choose to give it, is saying, there's something more. You are here destined for something greater than that which you think you are. Let go, and let me provide the highest purpose you've ever dreamed of to unfold beautifully in your life. This morning must be, I'm on a theme here, nature and bugs, because we're about to have Tropical Storm Alberto, right? Come up the coast. I used to live in Pensacola, Florida, which is right where it's about to hit right now. Was seeing that on the Weather Channel. And so in Pensacola, Florida, we had another hurricane years ago. And in my backyard, after the hurricane, there was like a small lake. It was quite flooded. But I looked out and I could see on this lake, this small lake, something was floating. And I was like, what is that? And so I walked outside and just trying to see what it was. I finally realized it was this. There we go. It was a huge raft of ants. Huge. And they're fire ants. And what I found out was that fire ants actually, this is one of their survival mechanisms. They actually can sense, whoops, go back. There we go. Fire ants actually sense that when water and rain is coming, they understand that they have to save who? The queen, right? And so what they do is they take the queen out and all of her eggs and the food that they have, and they form this raft. Now, when scientists first saw this happened, they were like, well, there must be dead ants on the bottom. What they found out, though, was that the ants on the bottom were actually alive, and they were trading places with the other ones. That the ants had figured out that they could join their little bodies together and float. And they could take turns being the ones on the bottom and the ones on the top and the ones taking care of the queen and the eggs and the food. And they could survive like this for months if they needed to. Now, if the ants can figure that out, don't you think that we might have the intelligence as well to absolutely understand that a flood that might be coming through your life? And has anyone ever felt like the waters are rising and you just don't know if you can survive it? Anyone besides me? Ever? If you have felt that flood in your life, maybe too, that Spirit has invested you with the divine knowledge, the divine intelligence, the divine purpose of knowing that there is something so far greater here going on than what you might be seeing. And so you and I have the infinite capability to overcome that which may be happening in your life that is going to take you to a place that is absolutely the best possible consciousness, the highest possible consciousness you've ever experienced. Sometimes the drama in our lives does that, doesn't it? It breaks us out of our comfort zone, and we have to go, whoa, got to do something here. And Albert Einstein says this. He says, hidden within every problem lies an opportunity so powerful that it literally dwarfs the problem. You and I have that same connectivity. You know, Albert Einstein was a very spiritual person. He was contemporary of the Fillmores. And he absolutely was tuned in the scientific knowledge that he had. He knew that science and religion walked hand in hand. That there was a divine intelligence happening also within the universe. And so when we rely upon our finite minds, the human mind, things can look rather bleak. Things can actually get us off track for a little bit. But when we rely upon the spiritual mind, that God mind that is always aligned with our greater good, that's when we can stay on purpose, on track, and on fire. On fire. So many of us are on the sidelines of life with our story, and Spirit is calling to us, come on, play in the game. And that's what I'm here to say this morning, that our purpose is not to live life on the sidelines. Our purpose is to actually participate in the game, whatever that game might be. My game is different than anybody else's game, as is your game. You get to find out what that is. And do you know what the goal of the game is? To be happy. To be happy. That you are here to be happy and prosperous in this world. And you gotta dream big. Now, Edwene Gaines decided many, many years ago, and she outlines that in her book, that she had to have a purpose, and it had to be big. She says, if your purpose is something that you can solve right away, it's not big enough. That's not a big enough purpose. So this is what a purpose that she came up with. Oh, there we go. Nope. There we go. Click. Okay. I'm 100% responsible for the transformation of the abundance consciousness of planet Earth. She doesn't say 92%. She says 100%. She is not playing small here at all. And when she made that statement, she had no idea how she was going to do that, because she herself was still struggling with her own consciousness of prosperity. But she was learning step by step what it meant to live a prosperous life. And as she learned, she knew that as she grew her consciousness was benefiting the world. So when you are living your purpose, your consciousness is benefiting the world. You know, somebody asked me recently, man, with all that is going on in the world today, I just don't know how I can keep going. How do I stay above the fray? This woman wrote to me. I had written the daily guides in Science of Mind magazine, and she wrote to me and she said, I love how you take these stories, and yet I see all the hardship in the world, and I see all of the things that are troubling and injustice and all the things that I just can't come to terms with. How can I stay positive in this type of world? And so I wrote her back and I said, the best thing that any of us can do, really, the only thing that any of us can do, is remove all of that within ourselves. Because if I see it in the world, there's still a part of me that is resonating with that. If I'm seeing that, how can I take that out of me? How can I raise my consciousness to the place where I am living embodiment of love, unconditional love, of prosperity, of power, of beauty, of joy? And so when I get to that place, I know that I am participating in the abundance consciousness, the overall consciousness of planet Earth. There's that old statistic that when 1%, just 1% of people in a community meditate, just 1%, crime plummets. Because someone could be out there going, I think I'm going to rob that gas station. And then he'll go, nah, don't feel like doing that today. Because the consciousness that has preceded him, that he is somehow tuning into because someone in the community has decided to raise their consciousness, has absolutely changed him in some way. And so I know that everything that I think, everything that I do is a part of the planetary healing. And I get to participate in that. That's a big job. And when I live on purpose, I get to do that. So Edwene talks about how, in living on purpose, sometimes you got to take big steps. So she was interviewing for a position with a very prosperous church in Michigan. They were offering her a staff position. She would be a staff minister there. She would have a very nice salary, a clothing allowance, a company car. This was going to be a very nice position. But when she went within and prayed about it, it wasn't coming up, yes, this is your place. And she said, you got to have a full-bodied yes. You know what that means? A full-bodied yes? Anybody? Have you ever had a full-bodied yes? Yes. A few of you had. Would you like a full-bodied yes? Yes. Full-bodied yes means that your whole body is resonating with that. And so she wasn't getting that when this position was offered to her. So and the minister kept pressuring her, well, you're going to take the job, And she said, give me one more night to pray about it. She went to sleep that night, had a dream. And in the dream, she saw that the painting that I believe it was Leonardo da Vinci did with the finger coming down, that's the kind of dream she had, and the finger was coming down. She saw a map of the United States, and the finger came down and landed on Knoxville, Tennessee. She didn't know what that meant. And she said, okay. And so she woke up the next morning. She called the minister and said, I'm sorry, I can't take your position. I'm supposed to be in Knoxville, Tennessee. He said, what's in Knoxville, Tennessee? She said, I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. So she found out that she called up the Unity headquarters and said, is there a church in Knoxville? They said, yes, as a matter of fact, and they've been praying for a minister to come in. So she contacted them, lovely group of people, and they said, we can offer you $600 a month. Even back when that was offered, it was not a lot of money. And she said, oh, okay. Wow, that's not quite the prosperous. If I'm healing the planet of their abundance consciousness, how is that going to help me? How can I live on that? But then she remembered her purpose was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And she said, God is my source. God is my source. Not that church, not the government, not my stock portfolio. God is my source. So I'm going to look for a sign. She said, I really want to see a sign. She had spoken at the church that Sunday morning, had met all the lovely people, and they went out. A friend of hers had come along, and they decided to take a drive up in the mountains. And so they were driving, and she said, I want a sign. Moses had a sign. He had a burning bush. And if it's good enough for Moses, it's good enough for me. So her friend said, a burning bush? I don't know about a burning bush. And so they passed a very small sign that said, burning brush not permitted. And she said, that's not a burning bush. Let's keep going. And so they're driving up in the mountains. It's beautiful. It's scenic. And she said to her companion, wouldn't it be nice if right around the bend there would be a burning bush that I knew this was my sign to be here? They passed the bend, around the bend. There was a huge billboard that said, Burning Bush Restaurant, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. That's a true story in her book. She knew that was her sign. So they went to lunch there actually, had lunch there, and she took the position in Knoxville. And she said she had the most wonderful time in the years that she was in Knoxville because she did indeed learn that God was her source. And she knew that she was being taken care of in every step of the way. And so this was her leap of faith, so to speak, to live on purpose, to be in alignment with her purpose, which was, you need to be in Knoxville, Tennessee. Even when it made no sense on paper. None. And so she decided that this was her way of contributing to the consciousness of the planet. I want to read a little bit of what she says here. She says, I had forgotten that my life was not limited by the salary I earned. While I lived in Knoxville, God provided for me in miraculous ways. I had a rich and abundant life far beyond the means of my small paycheck. Plus, the people I worked with were just amazing. They taught me the true meaning of love. In all, it was a wonderful, life-changing experience, and I'm so grateful that God sent me such clear signs and that I had the good sense to follow them. Because have you ever gotten a sign and you didn't follow it? I've done that and ended up kicking myself. Why didn't I do that? Because I didn't have the faith at the time to take that leap, to be on purpose. So this is Middlebury, Connecticut. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful town. It is the home of Middlebury College. And Middlebury College is a very significant college because this man, Roger Ralph, was in 1960 playing on the football team. And he had played one Saturday afternoon, played the college game, and he was driving home from the stadium, the college stadium, and he happened to see a woman pushing a wheelchair with a boy in it. He was about 13 years old at the time. His name was Butch. He stopped because it was snowing, and the woman was having real difficulty trying to wheel him home. And he stopped and said, "Can I please give you a ride?" And they said, "Oh, thank you, that would be wonderful." So he took them home, and he found out that Butch was an avid fan of the college team. And Butch also had, I believe it was multiple sclerosis. He had a debilitating disease that required him to be in this wheelchair. And he was living with his mother, and he found out that Roger found out that Butch really wanted to go to the games, but it was a real hardship for his mother to get him to the games. So Roger said to Butch, "I'll take you. Either me or one of my teammates will make sure that you get to and from every game from here on out." And so that's what happened. In that year, 1960, that happened with, keep going. There we go. They would take Butch to the games, and he would sit on the sidelines with the team. He was in heaven. Then when basketball season rolled around, he really loved the basketball team too. So the basketball team said, okay, Butch, we'll come and pick you up and then we'll take you back home. One of our team members will do that. Butch was a part of something that really became an incredible story, because the athletes of Middlebury College decided not only in 1960 to do that, in 1961 they decided to do that. Every football and basketball team ever since up until today picks up Butch, takes him to the school actually has bought a van now for his wheelchair so they can get him to and from very easily. They pick him up and they take him back. And that Roger didn't realize at that time that his divine purpose of service was coming forth. And that he was instilling a tradition of service that these team players couldn't learn in any other way. And that what they were learning on the field had nothing to do with the service they were learning about in picking up Butch. Butch has become he's beloved by the team there. As a matter of fact, one of the women's basketball players, she became such a good friend with Butch that she taught him to read and write and helped him pass his GED. And so actually she was a pole vaulter, Sarah Smith. And so Roger Ralph chose service as his divine purpose when he stopped to pick up Butch and his mother. And he changed someone's life forever because of it. Because Butch, he could have also had chosen a purpose. My life is empty. There's nothing I can do. I'm stuck in a wheelchair. But instead, he chose his purpose to be joy and enthusiasm and love. And he loves everyone that he comes in contact with. And these young people are learning that there is something greater going on here. Butch chose a purpose of joy, of encouragement and upliftment, and he's helped these teams discover something greater within themselves. So how about you? How about you? Are you going to be like Butch and refuse to stay on the sidelines? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Wayne Dyer, I'll close with this quote. He says, when you stay on purpose and refuse to be discouraged by fear, you align with the infinite self in which all possibilities exist. Can I get an amen on that? Amen. Oh, yes. We are absolutely here to live in infinite possibility. This room is pregnant with potentiality. There is something that is being birthed here right now. Something within you is calling you to a greater good. I invite you to follow that, to listen, to say yes, to say, I am here to be an important cog in the wheel of the cosmos. I'm done with playing small. This is it. Let's take that into prayer. Father, Mother, God, I indeed dwell in infinite possibility. I know that my divine purpose is to be a communicator of empowering ideas. And so I step into my own greater good, calling forth each and every individual in this room, each and every person who might be listening or watching, each and every person who somehow hears these words, knows that they too are capable of not just living on the sidelines, but playing in the full game of life. And so I know that each and every person here is now being lifted into a greater expression of their good. Each person has the courage to walk their path and to say yes to a greater faith, a greater potential, a greater possibility, a greater power that lies within them. Oh yes, something is percolating right now. And I let it come forth. I call it good and very good. And so each and every person here now has their own divine calling, their own divine purpose that is pulling them into this greater expression, this most wonderful life, unfolding beautifully, perfectly, organically, and on purpose. Oh, it is good. We claim it good. And together we say, and so it is. Okay, let me get back to my linear mind and figure out where we're at. Because when you open up, sometimes you forget what you're doing. Let's welcome back up Tom Havner.
Isn't it amazing how the song that I did before, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, dovetails with the story about Roger Ralph and picking up the little boy and taking him to the ball games and so forth. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. It's incredible, isn't it? Okay, changing gears now. Put your hand in the hand of the man who stilled the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself. You can look at others differently. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. My mama taught me how to pray before I reached the age of 7. And when I'm down on my knees, I'm that much closer to heaven. Daddy lived his life with 2 kids and a wife, and he did what we must do. And he taught me enough of what it takes to get you through. By putting your hand in the hand of the man who stilled the water. Sing along. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself and you can look at others differently. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. You all know Greg James, right? That's him. One-man band. Oh, put your hand in the hand of the man who stilled the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea.
Calm the sea.
Take a look at yourself and you can look at others differently. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. Every time I look in the holy book, I want to tremble when I read about the part where the carpenter cleared the temple. All the boys and 7 were no different fellows than what I profess to be. And it causes me pain to know that I'm not the man I could be. So put your hand in the hand of the man who stilled the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea.
Calm the sea.
Take a look at yourself and you can look at others differently. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee.
I know there's a microphone here somewhere for me. Okay. All right, so now we're going to stand and say our prayer for protection and close with our peace song. We hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day tomorrow. So let's join hands and say our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.